What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another conference championship prediction video. It's the Big 12 championship, and everything is on the line between these two programs. The Iowa State Cyclones are looking for their first conference title in nearly a century. It might actually be over a century at this point. And the Arizona State Sun Devils. You're noticing a theme with conference championships in their first season in a new conference. They are looking to stake their claim atop the Big 12, atop their new conference, and they are also looking to get into the college football playoff, much like Iowa State. But for Arizona State, it would complete one of the best stories in college football and one of the best turnarounds that a program has had this season. It's the Cyclones, it's the Sun Devils. Are the Clones going to roll, or is it going to be forks up for the folks in Tempe? You're going to hear me break this one down, and we'll tell you everything you need to know about the Cyclones and the Sun Devils here in just a little bit. But before we do that, you guys know I got to say thank you for all the love and support this channel has received, continues to receive. It does mean a lot to me. If you want to show your support for the channel, just interact with it in any way you can. You're doing one way right now by kicking back, relaxing, and watching this video, and I greatly appreciate that. But if you want to do more, well, the biggest way you can help support me on YouTube is hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I upload, and you'll want to do so if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am. You can also like, comment, share, and any other way you can interact with the channel that you can think of would help to show your support. But if you also want to support me outside of YouTube, please go give me a follow on Twitter or X. It's at TailgateNate29. You can also give me a follow on Instagram. And hopefully come 2025, I'll start posting a little bit more on those social media platforms. Thank you so much for all your support. And without further ado, let's dive on in to a high-stakes, everything on the line, win or go home Big 12 championship game. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas is the host site for this one. And man, this one is going to be a lot of fun. How do we do preview predictions around here on the channel? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to take a deep dive into some keys to the game when both teams possess the football, when each team is on offense and each team is on defense. So we're going to first start with this Iowa State offense, comparing it and looking at what it looks like against this Arizona State defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll take a look at the Forks offense up against this Cyclone defense. And at the end of the video, we'll take a look. We'll go through some more keys to the game, tell you how I think this one is playing out, and at the end of the video, I'll give you a winner for who I think is going to come away Big 12 champ and cement themselves a spot in the college football playoff. Man, this is going to be a fun one. Let's dive on into this matchup between Iowa State and Arizona State, two teams that did not play each other in the regular season. So let me introduce you to this Iowa State offense. Led by Rocco Becht, it has been a really good offense for the Cyclones and head coach Matt Campbell this season. Rocco Becht is a 3,000-yard passer. He's got 3,021 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Not a bad stat line at all. He's shown the ability to run the football as well. 272 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns for the quarterback. But and this is a running back by committee room. You have a ton of names that are back here in this room that you will see for Iowa State rushing the football. Carson Hansen, that is one name right there. He leads the way in rushing touchdowns, 11 of them, and rushing yards with 618. Also leads the team in yards per carry among qualified runners with 4.9 yards per carry. Abu Sama, he is also a really big piece, as well as a senior in Jalen Jackson. All of those guys get involved in this run game, and when you think you have one guy shut down, the other guy, or I should say the other two guys, come away with some really, really big-time plays. Now, Hansen is that feature tailback. They love to use him in packages, especially closer to the goal line, to try to punch that thing into the end zone, but this offense is very heavily primarily built on Rocco Becht, this passing attack, and two elite wide receivers. Both of them have hit 1,000 yards for the Cyclones this year. That is Jaden Higgins as well as Jalen Noel. Higgins has 1,068 yards and 9 touchdowns, and Noel has got 1,013 yards and 6 touchdowns. Noel has a higher yards per reception average because he does have 13 less catches than Higgins, but they get involved in the offense in pretty similar ways and in pretty much the exact same sort of what's the word I'm trying to look for? Usage rate. There's probably a much better way to say that. I just can't just can't think about that right now. So that's how this offense is primarily built. They love to spread you out with those two. They complete the short passes. They can complete the deep passes. But the main difference between those two, Higgins more of a short to medium route guy. Jalen Noel is that deep ball threat. Higgins does not have a reception over 40 yards this year. Noel has got plenty of them, including a 75-yard touchdown. That is how this Iowa State offense is built. How is this Arizona State defense built? Well, it's built on defending the run. It's got to prepare for a lot of horses in this Iowa State backfield, but the pass defense is susceptible for this Sun Devil team, right? This is a secondary that allows almost 220 passing yards per game. Good news for Iowa State. Your offense is built on the pass. You can take advantage of the fact that Arizona State and this passing defense is very, very lackluster. But Arizona State does do a lot of things pretty darn well. They get fairly ample pressure to the quarterback. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing fantastic, but they force a whole bunch of turnovers, especially recently. They forced a lot of turnovers, but we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. This Arizona State defense has stepped up, made some really big plays in very, very close games in which Arizona State is 6-1 in close games this season. That's games that have been determined by, I'll say, 8 points or less. That's one possession. So one possession games, they are 6-1. The only loss being on the road to Texas Tech. And of course, they do have that loss on the road to Cincinnati there as well. But otherwise, this is the defense that, for the most part, been pretty solid this year. We'll talk about the offense when we get there. But now you start diving on into some of the keys to the game. I think Iowa State's going to be able to stretch the fork defense pretty well. Arizona State has problems with teams that can spread you out. It had problems with Kansas. Kansas is a team that can spread you out, and Arizona State allowed 411 yards to Kansas. Now, it was pretty easily able to silence offenses that, well, don't necessarily have the horses to spread you out. Utah, under 350 yards. UCF, well, that's an offense that can spread you out, over 406 yards. Arizona State won that game by getting only 260 yards of total offense. It's because the defense stepped up and made plays. BYU, that's an offense that's been shown to spread people out this year. They outgained Arizona State in the Sun Devils win just a couple of weeks ago in Tempe. When offenses can spread you out and they have that downfield passing attack and they have multiple plethora of options to go to, it really does hurt Arizona State's chances. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what Iowa State does well. Yes, they throw the football well. Yes, Higgins and Noel are some really talented wide receivers. But the one thing that you'll look at this stat sheet that might be of interest to some of you is clock control and time of possession. Iowa State is on the field for 32.5 minutes per game. That means they are outpossessing their opponents by right around 5 minutes every single game. And those 5 minutes, a lot of games for the Cyclones this year have been absolutely vital. The Cyclones, much like Arizona State, has lost a couple really close games. They lost by 1 point at home on a rainy day to Texas Tech, and then on the road against Kansas, they just couldn't come away on the winning side of that things. Clock control is what the Cyclones do best, and Arizona State's third down defense is not the greatest. If Iowa State can convert the third downs, can stretch out some long drives, get this Arizona State defense tired, and keep this Arizona State offense that we're about to talk about in a little bit off the field, continue to exploit all the holes, especially within the Sun Devils secondary, well, Iowa State's going to have themselves a pretty darn good time. But the Devils, as I've said earlier, the Sun Devils have forced plenty of turnovers lately. Let's take a look at the past 3 games for the Arizona State Sun Devils. Let's go back to last week in the game against Arizona, where they absolutely slaughtered the Wildcats. They did force 1 interception from Noah Fafita. Okay, let's go back to the game against BYU. 2 turnovers in that one. Okay, let's go all the way back to the game against Kansas State. 3 turnovers that they forced in that one. In the game against UCF, they forced a turnover in that one there as well. In the game against Oklahoma State, they forced a turnover in that one. Arizona State loves to force these turnovers. I think there maybe is only 1 or 2 games this year where they have forced 0 turnovers this season. Iowa State has got to be able to limit the turnovers and not let this Arizona State offense and this Arizona State offense is hot. There's just no other way to put it. It's talented. It's got some good players. It might not be as purely raw talented as some of the other offenses that you'll see within this conference, but it is hot. Everything is clicking, and that is when an offense is really, really dangerous. Led by Sam Leavitt this year, the Michigan State transfer, 2,444 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. And he has found a world-class wide receiver with Jordan Tyson. 1,101 yards on 75 catches and 10 touchdowns this season. Now, there are a couple other guys that can catch the football. Gilroy, Medier, and some of the other guys that you can see out of this backfield. But we all know what runs this Arizona State offense, right? Well, if you don't, let me introduce you to Cam Skattebo. Nearly a 1,400-yard rusher this year, 1,398 yards, and 17 touchdowns in 247 carries. Sam Leavitt has also shown the ability to get outside of the pocket and run, and you'll see a couple other guys, most notably in Kyson Brown, that sit back there and rush the football for Arizona State as well. This offense goes as Cam Skattebo goes. If he's having himself a pretty darn good day, well, you can pretty much pencil in and pen in the fact that this offense is going to have a pretty good day. If it's a struggle for Cam Skattebo, then it might not go so well for this Sun Devil offense. But the Iowa State defense has one glaring hole. The secondary's been one of the best in college football this season. They allow opponents under 160 passing yards per game, which is just an absolutely absurd number to me. They allow almost 173 rushing yards per game. So much like the Arizona State secondary is susceptible, and we know the best thing Iowa State does is throw the football, the best thing that Arizona State does is run the football with Cam Skattebo, and that is the glaring hole with this Iowa State defense. Their rush defense is not that good, and they don't even force that much pressure. They only have 15 sacks this year, which Arizona State is going to look to establish this run game, right? I think Cam Skattebo is going to touch the ball more often than not in this contest, but you still have to factor in the fact that Jordan Tyson has been an electric weapon for this Arizona State offense, been an electric weapon for Sam Leavitt this year. They are going to use him in this game. It's where Iowa State is in their strengths, and it's where they're probably going to have to force some turnovers there as well. As you just heard me say, Leavitt to Tyson has been absolutely lethal this year, but the clone secondary has also been absolutely lethal. When you take a look at some of the stats that this Iowa State secondary has put up, again, you see the only 156.9 passing yards per game this year, but they have 30 passes defended. They have 14 picks. So 14 of their 21 turnovers forced have been via the interception. And man, they have been able to take advantage of some poor throws, some miscues, which Sam Leavitt has not shown much of this year, but he has shown that he still is susceptible to making a mistake a time or two. Iowa State's got to be able to capitalize off of that. Now, as a general key for both of these teams, one of these pass rushes, I think, is going to have themselves a pretty big day, right? One of these pass rushes is going to have to get home. And maybe it's not the pass rush. Maybe it's the defensive line as a whole. Which defensive line do I trust to get this job done against the other team's offensive front? Both of these offensive fronts have been a little bit shaky. Both of these pass rushers are not the most dynamic. And when you are looking at these two teams from a pure matchup standpoint, well, what each offense likes to do, the opposing defense is worse at doing that than defending the other thing, right? So Iowa State loves to pass the ball. Arizona State's pass defense is suspect. Arizona State loves to run the ball. Iowa State's run defense is suspect. So what do I see playing a bigger role here in this game? Because that's mainly how both of these teams are going to roll, right? Arizona State's going to look to run the football more. Iowa State's going to look to pass the football more. You see Arizona State is the 2.5-point favorite here, by the way. All lines and odds are as of recording this video. And these two teams really, when you look at it, can be fairly similar in some categories. Again, obviously the offensive philosophies are a little bit different. They have different styles of play, different schemes, things like that. But they aren't going to blow you away with many of the stats that they put up. They have a lot of great individual performers, and both of them just came away from the chaos of the Big 12 Conference. Now, that is not to say that these two teams didn't belong here. Arizona State is one of, if not the hottest team in college football right now. And Iowa State was one of very few undefeated teams left. They were sitting up there with BYU as an undefeated team as we came down the stretch this season, and just a couple of losses ruined that. But Iowa State is back to playing some of their better brand of football, right? I think it comes down to which team is playing better. And right now, I think that is Arizona State. And to me, trench play is going to be a big part here of this game. And the glaring hole of Iowa State's rush defense and not being able to defend Cam Scadaboo, I think is a big red flag for me, because Arizona State's rush defense has been good this year. And that being said, I just trust Arizona State to win the battle in the trenches a lot more than I trust Iowa State to do that. I think there are going to be points scored. I think these two offenses are going to be two offenses that get everything going that they want to get going. Arizona State's going to get the run going. Iowa State's going to get the pass going. And both of these teams are going to hit their shots. Where this game gets won for me for Arizona State is the line of scrimmage. I think the offensive front is going to do a good job at pushing Iowa State's pass rush back and being able to open up holes for Cam Scadaboo like it's been able to do all season long. And I don't trust this Iowa State pass rush more than the Arizona State pass rush. I trust Arizona State a little bit more. I trust Arizona State to be able to protect their quarterback. And if Sam Levitt wants to hit a deep shot to Jordan Tyson, I think they're going to be able to do that. Maybe not as effective of a rate as Becht is going to be able to hit Higgins or Noel, but they're going to be able to do it with some more success, and it'll catch Iowa State off guard more. I think Arizona State is also one of, if not the hottest team in the country right now, and that will play a big factor. They are playing their best football when it matters most, and it'll lead them to a Big 12 championship and a spot in the college football playoff. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Just one more. We'll move on to the ACC. Goodbye.